I did what everyone told me to do. I worked the extra shifts, I skipped the vacations, I said no to dinners out, no to upgrades, no to anything that didn't move me closer to one goal. For 15 years, every spare dollar I had went into one place, my mortgage. I was disciplined, responsible, praise. And 3 months ago, I made the final payment. I expected fireworks, relief, that movie moment where the weight lifts and life finally begins. Instead, I felt a cold pit open in my stomach, because when I looked around at the 2026 economy, I realized something terrifying. I hadn't bought freedom. I had accidentally performed a $500,000 vanishing act. I took liquid, usable money, the only thing that can actually buy groceries, medicine, energy, and time, and I buried it inside a pile of bricks and 2x4s that I can't eat, can't spend, and can't easily access. If you are a retiree sitting on a paid-off home today, or if you are racing to pay yours off before you quit working, you need to stop. Not slow down, not reconsider later. Stop. Because in the 2026 economy, you are making one of the most expensive financial mistakes of your life. And today, I'm going to show you the math. Not the motivational slogans, not the dinner party advice, but the math that the old guard of finance refuses to talk about. Before you click away, let me say this clearly. This is not about loving debt. This is not about gambling your future. This is not about being reckless. This is about understanding liquidity, inflation, and opportunity cost in a world that no longer follows the rules we were taught. Now wait, I know exactly what you're thinking. But I don't have a monthly payment. I'm safe. That belief feels comforting. It feels solid. It feels responsible. And it is the biggest lie in real estate. You always have a monthly payment. You just stopped calling it a mortgage. In 2026, property taxes have spiked dramatically in many regions. In some states, homeowners have seen increases north of 40% in just a few years. Insurance premiums are doubling, not because you filed claims, but because the math of rebuilding no longer works. Maintenance costs are exploding as labor, materials, and energy rise together. So let's say this out loud. You do not own that house outright. You are a high-level tenant of the government. Miss the tax payment and see how fast ownership disappears. Miss the insurance and one storm wipes out decades of security. The mortgage wasn't the only bill. It was just the most visible one. Now let's talk about the part nobody wants to talk about. Opportunity cost. This is where the emotional comfort of a paid-off home collides with financial reality. Imagine you have $600,000 locked inside your house. That money is not producing income. It is not adjusting for inflation. It is not available when life changes. Now, zoom out. Inflation is running at roughly 5%. High-quality yield instruments are paying around 7%. That spread matters. Because every year that $600,000 sits idle, inflation quietly takes a slice. Meanwhile, the alternative, income-producing capital, keeps working. At 7%, $600,000 generates $42,000 a year. That's $3,500 a month. When you choose emotional ownership over functional capital, you are not standing still. You are choosing to give up $42,000 a year for the privilege of saying you own the dirt. Even if your home appreciates, appreciation doesn't buy groceries. It doesn't arrive monthly. And it doesn't help you when prices jump faster than wages. This is what dead equity looks like. So let's make this real. Meet Jim. Jim did everything right. He paid off his house before retirement. He owns it outright. On paper, Jim looks rich. His home is worth $800,000. He has no mortgage. His Social Security check is $2,800 a month. But after property taxes, insurance, utilities, and basic maintenance, Jim has about $900 left each month for food, transportation, healthcare gaps, and life. Jim isn't starving, but he's not free. He plans grocery trips around discounts. He postpones medical procedures. He worries about every unexpected bill. Jim is house rich and life poor. Now meet Sarah. Sarah made a different choice. She kept a low-interest mortgage locked in from years ago. Instead of rushing to kill it, she deployed her capital. That same $800,000 went into a diversified income structure designed for the 2026 environment. At a conservative 7% yield, that capital produces $56,000 a year. That's roughly $4,600 a month before Social Security. Sarah's mortgage is covered, her taxes are covered, her living expenses are covered. But more importantly, her income adjusts. When prices rise, income rises. When costs spike, she isn't trapped. Who is actually free? Jim owns his house. Sarah owns an income machine. Here's the part retirees rarely see coming. Home equity is a one-way street. In theory, you can borrow against it. In practice, access depends on timing. In a tightening credit cycle, banks don't lend based on how much you sacrificed. They lend based on risk. If your income drops, if your health changes, if markets tighten, that available equity becomes conditional. And conditional access is not freedom. Banks lend money to people who don't need it. When you actually need it, the vault stays shut. This is the liquidity trap. Your wealth exists, you just can't reach it. Now layer inflation on top of this. If you have $1 million of equity today, you need to understand something uncomfortable. That million doesn't buy what it did 2 years ago, and it will buy even less 2 years from now. By locking that value into an illiquid asset, you are watching purchasing power bleed away while your fixed costs continue to climb. Maintenance doesn't get cheaper. Utilities don't stabilize. Taxes don't reverse. Inflation doesn't care that you feel safe. This is why smart investors are shifting their thinking, not toward reckless leverage, toward strategic arbitrage. This is where the so-called 7% rule comes in. It's simple. If your mortgage is locked at a historically low rate and your capital can earn meaningfully more than that in the open market, the spread works in your favor. You are not being crushed by debt. You are being paid to control an asset while your capital works elsewhere. When you pay that mortgage off early, you give that spread back. You hand the leverage to the bank. You surrender optionality. We were conditioned to chase debt-free status in an era where inflation was tame, housing was cheap, and wages rose alongside prices. That world is gone. In 2026, the rules are different. Liquidity beats pride. Cash flow beats ownership. Optionality beats emotional comfort. The new version of security isn't owning the roof outright. It's owning the income that pays for the roof and everything else beneath it. This doesn't mean every mortgage should be kept forever. It doesn't mean risk should be ignored. It means trade-offs must be understood. Real wealth isn't what you can point at. It's what you can spend when the world gets expensive. Don't aim to be house rich. Aim to be life rich. Because in a 21st century crisis, 20th century goals don't protect you. They trap you. And the most dangerous trap of all is believing that because you feel safe, you actually are.